need brothers, don't we? Yeah. Did you ever try to comb your hair without a mirror? Well, you wouldn't have too much of a problem doing that, right?
They get all messy.
What's that?
They get all messy.
Really? We all need mirrors, right? Of course. We all need brothers, too. Yeah. I just so thoroughly enjoyed. I'm not sure what I'm running on because I didn't get sleep, but I just so thoroughly am enjoying being with you brothers and talking afterwards, and I'd be glad to talk more later. Not because I got it all figured out by any stretch, but you just have really inspired me with your openness and engaging what we've been talking about here. This just a couple things to clear up from the last two sessions, hearing your feedback. Did you get the point of the $800 and the 1.3 trillion? Did you get what the point of that story was? I mean, it was a bad investment, right? But the point is, we settle for $800 sexual sin when God has 1.3 trillion of blessing, of freedom and purity. And we sell our sexuality and our drive so cheap. And we just cut ourselves so short of really all that God has for us. And it's obviously a stupid decision he made, but how many times have I made unwise decisions too? And then the other thing is, I struggle a little bit this thing about talking about knowing God and intimate relationship with him, because I'm sure you've noticed I haven't given you 5 steps to closer with God, have I? And I've intentionally not done that, although there's some ideas you could think about that would improve your relationship with God. But I've intentionally not done that because that's been the trap that has kept me from really intimacy with God. But there are some things, of course, and we've talked about them this morning and we'll talk about more now, do break down the barriers and surrender is a really good example of that, where surrender has a way of bringing us closer to God. Responding to suffering in our life brings us closer to God if we let it. It doesn't always automatically, but it does. So there's definitely things. And then I've been blessed by a couple books. I don't have one amazing book I recommend, but there's a couple. Every book besides the Bible, you have to spit out bones, right? There's always something you spit out. But Experiencing the Father's Embrace has been a good one for me. Abba's Child has been a good one. There's issues with all those books, but Divine Romance is really a stretcher, but that's been powerful in people's lives. So there is some things out there, resources as well. One illustration I didn't mention the last time and skipped over because I was worried Brad was going to get upset at me, and that is, I love the story of Cortez. Cortez was a man who explored South America, right? I don't know if you read that, remember that in your school. Cortez was one of the first ones to actually explore South America and claim it for Spain. He was of Spain, and that is reason why we have so much Spanish in South America, Central America and South America, because he conquered it for Spain, and Spain's influence was a real stronghold there, and really explored and conquered that area for Spain. But he had many reasons why he was able to do that. But one of his first choices was huge in that happening. So he had 11 ships and 533 men with him on the trip. Is that right? Yep. 11 ships, 533 men. And so that was a formidable whatever, but this was his key. When he got on land, Central America, and got on land, wherever it was he got on land, he said, okay, take everything off the ship that might be valuable. So they started taking off stuff, and he said, no, take off more. Take down the sails. We could use that for something, and take down this. And they go, why are we just stripping our ships like this and taking off everything? It won't be good anymore if we keep this up. He said, yeah, take off everything we need, pack it up on our animals. And then he made the declaration, burn the ships. Burn the ships. And the 533 men said, what are you doing? I got family back home. I got to get back to Spain. I'm glad to come and explore for you, but I'm going to get back to Spain. And he goes, we're not going back to Spain. We're going to be buried here. We're exploring no matter what it takes. We're burning the ships. They burnt the ships, and the rest is history. In my own journey up to 2017, I didn't burn the ships. I always kept a way out. I always kept the trap door. I always kept a way just in case. Part of this whole picture of surrender, not my will but yours be done, is the picture of burning the ships. When Jesus saw the rich young ruler, he said, sell everything and give to the poor. And he went away sad because the price was too high. I know what that feels like to walk away sad because the price is too high. Not quite that radical. 90%, but not 100%. I'm not going to burn the ships. I'm not going to lock down my phone. I'm not going to hinder myself or restrict myself. When we talk about pornography, I go, so what open door is there yet? Oh, okay, that's a door. So let's close that door. So what's another way? Let's close that door. What's another way? Let's close. Because that's critical. Now, does closing out pornography and living like Amish, does that fix everything? With all due respect to Amish, that's my heritage. It doesn't change the heart, but that's where it starts, right? It starts by repenting and clearing up those areas that Satan is using to destroy me. It's burning those bridges, it's burning those ships and those ways that Satan is using to get to me. And it's recognizing that, and sometimes it's really scary to recognize that because we still want a way out. We still want a way just in case. Got to burn the ships. Yeah, it's very critical. Part of surrender. So let's move now so we talked about suffering, and suffering is painful and hard, but it can draw us close to our Father. Talked about intimacy with God and then walking through suffering. And someone who is surrendered, the one who yields more, yields more. One who, I forgot to say that, but yields more to God. I yield more fruit and I see more of Christ in me. Yield more, yields more. Now is power. We want it first. I like to skip the suffering, skip the cross, skip the hard things, skip the hard times that come my way. But I can't have an Easter without Good Friday. How could we have had Easter without Good Friday? No, I got to have Good Friday. I got to have the Garden of Gethsemane before I get to Easter. I have to come to the garden and say, not my will, but yours be done if I want to live on Sunday, in Easter. It's so critical. But what does it mean to have God's power, to let go of the controls of the skid loader, as it were, or to raise your hand in the maze and say, I need help to get out of here. I need power. I'm done looking. I'm done trying. I'm done fixing it myself. I need your power. I want to be the man of God. I want to step up to the plate and not be a passive father. I want to love my wife and lay down my life for her. I want to move into my life and my world and be the man of God that God wants me to be. But what does it mean to really key into that power? What does it take to meet God and meet his power in my life? What does Paul mean when he says, when I am weak, then am I strong? How does that fit power and the power of the resurrection? To know the power of the resurrection. To say, when I am weak, then am I strong. How does that work? How can you be strong if you're weak? And if you're like me, I like shortcuts or ways to get around the cost of what it takes to really understand his power. I want to skip the suffering. I want to skip the hard things. We have Abraham getting Hagar in and using Hagar to try to get around and help God out, fill his plan. And those Hagar solutions in my life can easily trip me up. Back to sexual sin again. The reason why it's so enticing, there's lots of reasons. It's not an accident that it's so enticing and so challenging for us, even at my age. Why is it so challenging? There's lots of reasons. Because it never rejects me. It's always available. If you know anything about married life, it's not always a piece of cake. Marriage doesn't solve everything. And sometimes there's distance and rejection and coldness but sexual sin is always available, and it always accepts me just the way I am. I don't have to sacrifice. It's always available. And it just seems like such a good deal. It never rejects me, treats me like I'm king. It's not complicated relationships. Pornography never has a headache, never is tired. It's just always available. And so I'm not justifying anything, of course, but I'm just recognizing that there is a reason why sexual sin can be so enticing, because it offers all those other things. But it's just $800 when God has $1.3 trillion for me just around the corner. Turn with me to John chapter 12. John chapter 12 is a good illustration of what it means. What is the key to experience this power? You go a lot of different directions with this. There's a lot of different parts of experiencing God. How do I experience that power in my life today? Going home, flying home this evening, being all alone in Chicago, flying home, missing my wife, missing my family, nobody knows me. I could do anything. Basically, I'm not how do I experience God's power in my life today, in my experiences today? John 12, verse 24 to 26. John 12, I'll be reading out of the ESV. Truly, truly, I say unto you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. Whoever loves his life loses it, and whoever hates his life in the world will keep it for eternal life. If anyone serves me, he must follow me, and where I am, there will my servant be also. If anyone serves me, the Father will honor him. Sometimes the Christian life and the Bible can sound so backwards. Like we already said, you can't have an Easter without a Good Friday, right? Well, you can't have any life without death. You can't have abundant life if you don't experience death. You can't have fruit unless the seed breaks, like he's talking about here by the kernel of wheat. You can't feed 5,000 unless the loaf of bread breaks. Think about that for a second. How many things are more valuable if they're broken than if they're whole? How many things are more valuable broken than whole? I'll give you one example. A diamond. A diamond out of the ground is a chunk of whatever, and that's a diamond. But if it starts getting broke and lapidary, what's that? Whatever, it becomes more valuable once it's broken. Okay, what else could be more valuable broken than whole? Shout it out real loud. I can't hear. A glow stick. Yeah, a glow stick is more valuable broken, right? You break a glow stick and it shines real bright. What else? Us. Absolutely. And that's what we're going to talk about the rest of the time. You're more valuable broken than whole. How about that? How about a horse? At the auction. A horse that's broken is far more valuable, far more useful, far more helpful than if a horse isn't broken, right? I'm not a horse guy, but I understand that. And so it talks about a wheat goes into the ground, and the kernel of wheat has to die or crack open. Is that right, Jonathan? You're a farmer. Yeah, it has to crack open, and the moisture has to get inside, and the germ has to start growing and come up and bear fruit, right? The kernel of wheat has to die, has to be broken for it to. If a kernel of wheat goes down there and says, I am not broken, I will not let my shell be cracked, I am a kernel of wheat, and I'm going to stay a kernel of wheat, and that's what you and I are sometimes. Some of you are so thick-headed, your wife has been trying for 30 years to get through your head and still hasn't got through it. There's a good possibility with this group of men. What was that? Have you been listening to me? That's me all the way, for sure. I wouldn't. Every time she would start getting a little too personal, I'd say, well, I talk to other men. I'm good. I talk to other men. That was my little push-off. Yeah. Unless we're broken, you're never going to be a man God longs you for to be. If you try to keep a tight shell and act like you're pretend holiness all the time and wholeness all the time, and like you have it all together and you have this tight shell and it's really, really thick, so your wife can't get to it and no other men can get to it, and you're just this, yeah, I know what that's like. And I see people in my church, that's what it's like, yeah. But until my kernel of wheat cracks, then life can come. Then the stalk comes up, bears fruit 100-fold. Then things happen. And it's exactly the same way in my journey of intimacy with God. When my heart starts cracking open and I say, I'm done being bitter. I'm done blaming people. I'm done blaming my wife. I'm blaming that I don't have a wife. I'm done blaming. I'm cracking open. God, penetrate my heart. That's the key to power. Unequivocally, I can say that from my own personal experience and walking with men. Unless I'm willing to let God's Spirit break my shell of self-sufficiency, of pride, or whatever you want to call it, there is no hope for me. Wow, that's a strong statement. But I don't know any other way. He says, unless you die, you can't live. It's very, very, very clear what he says here. Whoever loves his life will lose it. Whoever hates his life in this world will keep it. And so there's no other way. Like this one song that just ministers to me so often. It says, I come broken to be mended. I come wounded to be healed. I come desperate to be rescued. I come empty to be filled. I come guilty to be pardoned by the blood of Christ the Lamb. I say that over and over and over. Just as I am, I come to you, Jesus. I forgot. I got off track a little bit. Got a little tight. But this is the posture of my heart. You can never expect intimacy with God. You can never expect to really know God, the depth of what he longs for you to know him as, if I don't crack, and if I'm not broken, and if I'm not humble enough to be open to that Spirit's work. It's our choice. The Spirit doesn't hit our seed with a hammer. It's our choice. That's what we have. We have our will. That's about all we do have, but we have that. God doesn't demand it. God doesn't force us. Only I can. Only I can. Flip over to Luke 18 now, verse 9 to 14. If I would go home and ask my wife or ask my children, is Dad broken? Is he humble? Is he approachable? Is he teachable? Does he have time to sit down and really hear my heart, like we were hearing our dear brother's heart? I mean, really hear? Don't come up with your cute answers. Don't come up with fixing them. Don't come up with all the things he should say and should do different. But just listen and really care and really know. What would they say about me? Or as a young person, fellow youth group leaders, whatever it would be. What would God say? There's no way I can know God unless I'm broken. I'm sorry, there's no life without death. There's no power without brokenness. There's no power of Easter without Good Friday. It just doesn't happen. Quit fooling yourself. Luke chapter 18, verse 9 to 14. Jesus tells this story, parable, and which one is most like you? Which one is most like me? I've been both, actually, to be honest with you. I've been both. Hopefully more like one than the other now, but like both. Verse 9 to 14. He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and treated others with contempt. That's a key verse. So that's the one. Trusted in themselves that they were righteous and treated others with contempt. 2 men went up into the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, prayed thus with himself, God, I thank you that I am not like other men that are not here this morning. They should be here. Extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I'd only have to fast once a year according to the law, but I fast twice a week. Never mind, I fast on Monday and Thursday. And you know why I fast on Monday and Thursday? Because Monday and Thursday are market days. And if I fast on Monday and Thursday, more people can see me fasting. Isn't that a great idea? So I'll fast on Mondays and Thursdays every week, and everybody will be impressed. That's exactly what they did. I give tithes of all that I get. But, verse 13, the tax collector standing afar off would not even lift up his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, God be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humble, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. Wow. Talk about stepping on your toes. You know, there's an answer to getting your toes stepped on. You know what it is? Turning around. So you dare me? You ready to get honest and open? Let's see what it's saying. Verse 9, they trusted in themselves that they were righteous. It was all about, what do people think of me? How do I look? How much do I fast? How white is my shirt? Nothing wrong with white shirts, but they're not your ticket to righteousness. Sorry. How much do I rest and trust in my own righteousness? The Pharisee trusted in his own righteousness, especially compared to him. Can I ask you a real honest question? I like it because it doesn't step on my toes. Since you've been here this morning, have you had a thought that somebody else should be here and they really need this? Not just because you care about them, but because they're messed up. Have you thought of somebody that should be here and really needs this? And thank God I am here. Or he is here, and I sure hope he's listening, because he really needs to hear this. And I hope this is finally going to get through his thick head. Right, Dad? Ouch. Only you know your thoughts. I didn't have a thought like that because I don't know anybody around here. I was wishing I'd see other people, but yeah. I'm off the hook. Pharisee. That's a Pharisee. Sorry, it is. Because I'm here in this church and giving up a whole half of a Saturday to be here, ain't I righteous? That's Pharisee mentality. And I'm sure much further in the journey than that other brother in church, or that especially those brothers from the church I left. Thank God I'm not like them anymore. Sorry. That's what he's saying. That's what the Pharisee's saying. I'm glad I'm not like him. I'm in the first class section because all the good people are up here, but all the people struggling and don't have it all together, they're back in the slum section. And the coach, I'm in first class. Trusted in themselves that they were righteous. Why don't I have any power? It's all about me. It's all about my righteousness. It's all about me getting it all together and looking good and what other people think. It's all about me. It's all about me pulling it off. It's about me saying, I've been free for 3,296 days. That's why I don't often say that. Why no power? It's all about me. It's all about me. The publican had no pride. He hit bottom. I can't change my heart. I can do nothing without Christ's intervention in my life. Apart from him, I can do nothing. He owned his own junk. He said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. That mercy word is halastrion. Halastrion is that mercy. Remember back in the Old Testament, there was a mercy seat. The mercy seat where the high priest would offer the sacrifice for the sins of the world. The mercy seat, recognizing the desperate need for God's mercy in their lives. And they needed to be reminded of that again and again and again. And this publican understood that. And he says, I don't come to you. You don't hear the publican bragging about that he goes to this church or that church or wears a white shirt or whatever it is. He just says, thank you, God, for your mercy. One of the best fruits that came out of 2017, when it stripped me down to my core, all the things I was basing my worth on, all those things got stripped away and went up in smoke. And I had to say, no, I got to find some other clothes. I got to find something else to wear because all that was taken away. Oh, how about the robe of righteousness? How about the blood of Jesus and his mercy? And when I hear about someone falling into sexual sin, it breaks my heart. But I don't see him as a leper, as, oh, he better stay in the coach. I'm in first class because I have the victory. No. I say, I experience God's mercy and grace. You can too, brother. You want to talk? Yeah, you can too. If you want to talk, I'm here. It changes everything. How do I know if I'm acting like a Pharisee? How easy is it for me to be critical and judgmental of other people and think less of them in a critical, judgmental, condemning way? That is big for me. Ask Janelle. She'll tell you. And she calls me out. Phil, you're messed up. You're throwing him under the bus. You're demonizing him. Just last week, she said it again. I'm not saying I'm perfect. But when I have this critical, judgmental, condemning, greater than somebody else spirit, you know what that is? That's trusting in my own righteousness, and my own pride, and my own self-sufficiency, and looking as if they're lower class citizens. Yeah, maybe they're struggling, of course. Maybe they're stuck in old traditions or whatever. Maybe they aren't where they should be spiritually. But I'm not looking down on them. I'm praying for them. And I'm looking, maybe there's an open door. I can reach out to them. Almost every time I'm struggling with my own intimacy with God and knowing God, it's because I'm hanging on to this Pharisaical attitude of trusting in my own righteousness and my own self-sufficiency. And therefore, I'm going to be more critical and condemning. And therefore, I'm going to be also distant from God. Because if I'm self-sufficient and I'm trusting my own righteousness, frankly, I don't need time with God. Just so I don't go to hell. Otherwise, I'm good. But when I realize how desperately critical it is to be under his mercy and his grace, wow, do I ever need him. I can't have life without death, without that surrender. Turn with me to Luke chapter 6. Brokenness. The shell of self-sufficiency, the shell of pride, the shell of, I don't really need God that bad. It's kind of a nice idea, but I'm pretty good already. Luke 6:6-11 is a real story. And I want you to just put yourselves in the shoes of the withered man with a withered hand. Put yourself in his shoes and see what he was really thinking, was really feeling at the time. Okay? Luke 6, verses 6 to 11. On another Sabbath, he entered the synagogue and was teaching, and a man was there whose right hand was withered. And the scribes and the Pharisees watched him to see whether he would heal on the Sabbath, so that he might find a reason to accuse him. But he knew their thoughts, and he said to the man with the withered hand, "Come and stand here." And he rose and stood there. And Jesus said to him, "I ask you, is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do harm, to save life or to destroy it?" And after looking around at them all, he said to him, "Stretch out your hand." And he did so, and his hand was restored. But they were filled with fury and discussed with another what they might do to Jesus. So there's this man with a withered hand. Okay? So he has his withered hand stuck in his jacket. It was always stuck in his jacket because it was very shameful. He felt trash. He felt only half of a man because he only had one hand to work. He only had one hand to earn a living for his family, so he's probably making half the normal wage because he just had one hand. I would have given you $5 if you had two hands, but I'll give you $2 an hour because you only have one hand. So his family was poor. He was laughed at. He felt that deep, deep shame. You know what shame is? That shame that I don't have what it takes. I'm worthless. Nobody wants me. I don't really feel connected well to people. I'm kind of living life my own, the best I can, right? Because there's shame, and there's shame in the withered hand because it looked disgusting. And in that culture, they looked down on people that had withered hand. Like there was something wrong with them. Or if they would just ask forgiveness for their sin, they'd be okay. So he kept his withered hand inside. And that's why it's so hard to open up with other people, because I don't want anybody to see that shame in me. I don't want them to see that part of me that doesn't smell very good, doesn't look very good, and looks kind of messy. And I feel bad about it. I feel embarrassed about it. And I don't want people to see it. So I'm insecure about it. And I'd make sure it's hidden because hiding seems to be safer. It's more safe to hide it. It's more safe not to be honest. That's why we're not vulnerable. We long to be vulnerable. We long to be close. We long to be connected. But our shame just says, no, I can't risk it. Or maybe I did risk it and I got slapped over the face and never again. I'm never going to risk it again. I got to keep my hand in here, hiding really good so nobody can see it. And so the shame, by the way, what's the big engine that drives sexual sin? Shame. Shame. And then when we fall into sexual sin, the shame comes on double heavy, double hard, and I turn around and then I'm more of a sitting duck to fall back into sexual sin. And when I fall back, then there's more, it's compounding. And the shame just piles on like a snowball going down the hill. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Shame. We talk more about that. So this man had the shame of his withered hand. And it was stuck inside his coat and it stayed there. So just imagine for a little bit, the story didn't turn out the way it says. And just imagine for a moment the man is in the synagogue and he has his withered hand in here. And Jesus comes up to him. And he's honored because nobody ever talked to him at church, synagogue. And he's honored that this famous preacher, this famous teacher, this famous rabbi would come even talk to him. Wow, Jesus actually has time to talk to me. Not only that, but he tells me to reach out my hand. And what if for a split second the man would have thought, sure, welcome to our synagogue, Jesus. I am so glad you're here. And he's got his strong right hand that does the work of two hands. It's ruddy, it's strong, it's manly. And he reaches it out and he shakes Jesus' hand and says, welcome to our synagogue. It is a pleasure to shake your hand. Can I have your autograph? Whatever. Pleasure to meet you. I've heard so much about you. I believe in you. You're man of God and the Son of God. He could have. Jesus didn't say which hand to stretch out. He didn't say stretch out your withered hand. He didn't say stretch out your right hand or your left hand. He said stretch out your hand. Right? You had a choice. He could have. And then went out, left the synagogue and still had a withered hand. Every one of you men have a choice this morning. Every one of us has a choice. Which hand you're going to stretch out to Jesus? I have a choice. Which hand am I going to stretch out? Because I'm convinced the man, when he locked eyes with Jesus, no matter they're in the synagogue, public place, all his friends are watching. All his friends see what's going on. Nobody's ever seen this withered hand before. Nobody's seen it. And he makes sure of that. But when he looked in Jesus' eyes, I'm convinced when he looked in his eyes, he saw something different in Jesus. Jesus was different than the Pharisees. He was different than the other people he knew. There was something about Jesus. I've heard of other people being healed, and I believe it. And there was something different about him in his eyes. He said, I don't care what people say. I don't care what people think. I'm going to stretch out this hand. And he does. Plus, there's not a very good chance he's going to get healed on the Sabbath in the synagogue. Jesus isn't that dumb to break rules like that. Maybe that's another good reason not to stretch it out. But he does. And it's restored. Whole again. Just like his other hand. Now he has two strong, healthy hands. He can get a real job, earn a real income, be back around the table of guys laughing and having a good time and connected in the community, connected in the synagogue. Maybe they'll even ask him to preach. I don't know. But now he's restored, not just with a nice hand, but in society, in the culture, in the connection, and in every way you can imagine, he's restored back to full health again. But there's one thing, one crucial thing that the man did that he was restored. And that was, he was willing to be broken. He was willing to lay aside what people thought of him. He was willing to lay aside impressing other people. He was willing to lay aside his own self-sufficiency, trusting in his own righteousness to be a good person in the synagogue. He laid all that aside and said, I'm going to trust Jesus with it. And each of us have a choice. You can keep it in there, and you can still be a workaholic and work crazy hours to make a big living and make lots of money, and that your whole focus can become that, because that can make you feel not so shameful, because people hear that, oh, you got this big business and you got a couple branches, and so you're really amazing, and that's going to help me not feel quite so shameful about my withered hand. You can try sexual sin, because for a while you feel like $1 million because someone took off their clothes, and you just feel so amazing and alive and powerful. And then the shame comes and you still got your withered hand. You can still rape your wife, get what you want, whenever you want it. That's what wives are for. She's too complicated anyway. If I let her decide or be part of that decision, it'll be the last time we have sex. I can't trust her. And so we keep the withered hand inside. Our pastor asks us to serve in the church and be a man of God in the church and teach or do something. I can't do that. I don't know how to do that, because I'm not going to tell you this, but I have a withered hand and I'm just not up to that. So we sit on the bench, and Jonathan scratches his head trying to be a pastor, and all these guys are sitting on the bench doing nothing. Now what does he do? He's still got the withered hand inside. It's our choice. It's not quite that simple, but yet it is kind of that simple, isn't it? over and over, sometimes a couple times a day, I think of something like this. And I think of, God's calling me to be broken and open and stretch out my hand, even when I don't feel like it, even when it seems so scary and so stupid. Turn with me to 1 Timothy 2:8 as we wrap up our time together. 1 Timothy 2:8. Is 1 Timothy in the New Testament? You know? It's in here somewhere. It's hiding somewhere there. I have a new Bible and everything sticks together. Is it before Hebrews? I'm serious. Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is. You know, I did that on purpose. You know why? What's that? It's before 2 Timothy? I did that on purpose. You know why? I'm a preacher. I don't want you to know I don't know where 1 Timothy is. Hogwash. Who cares? It's okay not to be able to find 1 Timothy. Chapter 2, verse 8. What does he say? I desire then that in every place the men should pray, lifting up holy hands without anger or quarreling. I love this analogy. What does he mean by lifting up holy hands? I'm going to ask you a simple question. So don't worry, I'm not going all charismatic on you, but there's parts we need to learn, right? But when I lift up my hand, what is this a symbol of right here? I'll say it louder. Surrender. Hands up. See if you have why did the police say to have your hands up? Is that just a wave to the crowd? Why did the police say to have your hands up? Why? What? Vulnerability, right. I mean, you could really goose me, man. You could really, it's open game, right? All kinds of things you could do if my hands are up. Good, excellent. Vulnerability, what else? What's that? Can't fight back like this, right? I'm not like this. I'm not like bracing myself. I'm like vulnerable and not fighting back. What else? It's good we got that figured out. We're never going to fight back now, right? What's that? Huh? Openness. Yeah. Openness. So why does it, you still didn't answer the question. Why does the police have you put your hands up? No, not that. We said that already. Why? Just like what he said. So I have nothing to hide. He wants to see if you have a gun. He's going to frisk you and see if you have any gun or you're hiding something, right? Openness. And I've got nothing to hide. I've got nothing to prove. I've got nothing to lose. Yeah. Openness. I don't have any secrets. Do you have any secrets? Nobody else knows? Nobody should have secrets. Nobody knows. I don't. But it's hard. It's hard to be open with our secrets. So hard, right? What else? Is there anything else I'm missing? It's hard. What else is that a symbol of? Surrender, openness, nothing to hide, vulnerability, not fighting back. Wow, that's quite a list. Anybody else? There you go. That's on my notes. I just didn't get that far. Yes, reaching out. God. Kira, remember Kira? Grandpa, hold me. Grandpa, show up. If you don't show up, I'm sunk. If you don't show up, I'm never going to make it. Worship. Reaching out to hold his hands. Reaching out saying, God, I need you. The psalmist is always reaching up his hands to God. I need you, God. Yeah. Anybody else? When it all comes down to it, that's what it means to be a godly man. A godly man is a posture of lifting up holy hands. You know what comes in the verses just before this? Modesty. I am absolutely convinced modesty is the problem right here. It's not with the ladies. Because when my hands are held up, and when my hands are worshiping God and reaching out to God with no secrets, nothing to hide, transparent, open, vulnerable, I can then speak into my wife and my daughters and whoever else because I have nothing to hide. And I can call them to the same holiness and the same purity in their lives. But if I got my junk, there's no way I'm going to speak into that. Lifting up holy hands. That was Paul's desire. As Paul was saying, if only you would live with that posture. If only you would live with that posture. You would experience what it means to live in brokenness. Not trusting my own righteousness like the Pharisees. Willingness to be vulnerable and stretch out my withered hand to Jesus. I hope I don't give you the impression that this is just so easy and simple. I try to break things down into simple ways to understand, but I'm very well aware, yes, 2017 was a tough year and a breakthrough, but I have struggled every day since. It's a real battle. It's not like you flip a switch and you're good. But as we begin to live this life, it becomes more and more, this is the life I want to live. I want to live with your 1.3 trillion in blessings. I don't want to be cheated with just $800 of trinkets. Yes, I can't imagine now. Honestly, I can't imagine looking at porn and breaking my dear sweetheart's heart. I can't imagine going to that instead of going to my grandpa to hold me. I can't imagine why I would ever do that. I really can't. So as the journey goes, it becomes more and more a part of who you are, because you're finding your connection. You're finding your healing. You're finding what your heart is really longing for in knowing God and not trinkets of sin and trinkets that offer a buzz, quick buzz. You start to say, oh, this is the real deal. To know God is the only way. Your wife can't even do this for you. It's the only way that deep, deep core need of my heart is met when I come to God and I experience His grace, His mercy, His forgiveness, His cleansing, and also His power. And walk as His son. Do I know God? None of us can ever fully know God. But do I know God? Since we started talking at 8 o'clock, do I know God different than I did before? Was I at a 2 and now 4? Or what's going to change? What illustration, what thought is God's Spirit penetrating my heart and saying, search me, O God, and know my heart. You can try searching other ways. You can try searching. The world, lots of people try. But only knowing God will meet the deepest longings of my heart. Only knowing Him intimately in His suffering and in His power.